The world has changed much in the 54 years since I stood in Harvard Yard as a graduate. The field of publishing books has changed just as much, with the insecurity of large publishing companies now declining in activity and the rise of the personal computer and self-publishing. Figures show that at present, self-published books by far outnumber traditionally published books each year. Self-publishing books used to be a noble thing to do, and distribution was easier because there were relatively few writers selling books. Walt Whitman of Civil War times published his own books and became famous. Amy Lowell also published her own books at about the turn of the 20th century, and there were others. Then the large commercial publishing companies came in and dominated the field, except for some academic publishers. But I never expected the dramatic change from the large publishers to individuals publishing their own books. This is my experience with publishing. My micropress, called Ohan Press, is located at my home in the town of Watertown. For in 1983, shortly after I had left the job in journalism for a small Armenian-American newspaper in the same town, and armed with a great deal of Armenian information from years working at the Armenian Mirror Spectator, and also from interviewing my mother and father, I didn't really have enough factual material for a prose book. Like all self-publishers, I had trouble getting reviews in leading publications, getting my book carried by bookstores, and generally being treated like an amateur. It was mentioned only by specialized newspapers and magazines, those I had worked for. I'm glad that perception has changed. The revolution came about through the influence of home computers, as well as collective imagination. Now, self-published books are often given good press and good reviews. Some people may disagree with my enthusiasm, but circumstances always change. Since I had already published a few poems on the Armenian subject, I gathered some facts and wrote the rest from my information. The result was carvings from an heirloom, picture 1, which was nothing brilliant. It was just a first book of poems, rather immature in style, but with enough subject matter to carry it along. I got permission from the town hall to start this little business, and then proceeded to get the poems together, get them typed and off to a printer. My husband helped me with the technical aspects of the work and has been doing so ever since. So my first self-published book was on the table at the cost of $5 each, not shy about showing up at Amazon.com. Together with the mailing list I had managed to laboriously put together, the work did surprisingly well for a first book of poems. I was encouraged. I found myself writing continually, sometimes poetry and sometimes prose. Yes, there were off times, but I recovered my inspiration. The second book of poems, At Quarter Past Reality, picture 2, did even better by winning a first prize from Writer's Digest, a magazine for writers. I was doubly encouraged. Then a book of prose found me, For after my father's death, I wrote his memoir from some information he had left. They called me Mustafa Picture 3, sold very well considering it was published by an almost unknown micropress and was soon republished by Alexander Street Press as part of their database about immigrants in the early 1900s. My husband translated my father's writings for the second part of this book. He also translated From Kesub to Watertown by his father, which was a good seller. You would think by this time I would accept the fact that poetry doesn't sell well, but that was a lesson I never learned, being satisfied with good reviews and honorable mentions. My next book of poems, called History's Twists, the Armenians, Picture 4, won an honorable mention also from Writer's Digest. Add my memoir, my literary profile from 4 years ago, which explains Harvard's role in my writings. It goes into some detail about a couple of courses I had in literature and poetry. To bring you up to date, my latest book of poems, called A New Orchid Myth, Picture 6, published by Create Space, is getting excellent reviews, and I hope it will do as well. So the moral is, being a poet is not lucrative, except for those who teach, but it is tremendously heartening and provides a real identity. Do you have any questions?
Hello, congratulations to you. And I am both a poet. I write poetry and prose, and I'm in the midst of starting a series of, they're called Grammy's Grammar travel books, and I'm really trying to decide what to do about publishing them. So this is very helpful. Now you have yourself publishing in your home, and you publish other works then.
I publish my own work. Actually, I have not taken any outside work, and at this point, I don't think I could.
No, okay.
But
you may have some recommendations, though, if I see you separately.
Yeah, I have been asked by at least 50 people to publish their books, but I really can't.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Hi, I just wanted to know, do you, I know you prefer poetry, but have you enjoyed writing in a prose form?
I have written and published 4 books of poetry. Okay. I have also written, most important prose that I've written is my memoir, which is 311 pages, and it has very dramatic stories in it about my life, my parents' life, and also my father's memoir I wrote.
I think those would be stories for the huge audience for them in schools as well.
Pardon?
I think you'd have a huge audience for them in schools as well, so they could know something about your background and your story.
Yes, I wrote about my studies here. Yeah.
Thank you.
First, let me say Shnuri Galiem. I like the idea of your poetry and your writing. Will you when you publish them, are they published in book form so you can take the literal object and read it, as opposed to being on these books that you see, you know, they look like movies? Pardon my say, I despise them. I rather hold the object in my hand. I like to talk to people, look at people, not on the cell phone back. How can you talk poetry and prose on the cell phone? Look at the individual. Let them see how you read poetry. Let them hear how you speak it. This is what I like. I hope you will continue to publish it in book, in reading form, not on the TV movie screen, if you will. I'm from the old school, and I like books.
I have 4 published books. They are in print. Some of them are also on Kindle, but you don't have to deal with that.
My question was going to be also about the Kindle, because I think that poets should use every avenue to have their work published. And I love your photograph, too.
Thank you.
Anybody else? All right. Thank you, Helene.
Thank you.